please, to be followed by the Senator Forêt. Senator Marshall?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And my question is for Mr. Thompson, and I just want to make sure that I understand about the funding, the $2.1 billion. When you responded to Senator Dagenet, I think you indicated that the fund was managed by a third party. Is that correct? Did I understand your explanation correctly?
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So once we have a final agreement with the negotiating parties, the amounts for the settlement that has been negotiated will be put into a trust, and it will be administered by the third party responsible for the administration of the trust to determine eligibility and issue the payments. It's not the department that's going to be issuing directly the payments. It's going to be done by the third party as negotiated by the government.
So is this $2.1 billion now, has that been turned over to a third party to be administered, or does there have to be further negotiations?
So the negotiations are ongoing at this moment, and the amounts once voted will be in the departmental reference level, and only once the negotiations are concluded, it will be put into the trust. I just want to mention as well that a portion, as explained by my colleague a little earlier in response to a question, there's a portion of that funding that is also dedicated to initiate the reform of the program. So there is money. It's not all money that is going to go through compensation. A portion of that funding will also be invested in ensuring that we are better meeting the needs of the communities through the reform of the program.
Okay. And so when you responded to, or when your colleague responded to Senator Pate, when she asked the question about some of the challenges that applicants are finding when they apply for funding, are they applying directly to the department, or are they applying to this third party that you refer to?
So, Mr. Chair, just to make sure that I understand the question, we're referring to the compensation funding, or we're referring to Jordan Principal's requests?
I asked the question. Now, I don't recall what funding it was. I'm just trying to understand how the funding is provided, because I had always thought that the department provided the funding directly to applicants, but now you're telling me there's a third party. So what's the differentiation? Tell me that.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So there's a distinction between compensation as part of the negotiated settlement. So that funding would be put into a trust and then would be administered by a third party. With regard to Jordan Principal applications, those applications are made to the department, they are reviewed by the department, and the payments are issued by the department.
Okay. I'll keep going until the chair stops me. But who's the third party? That sounds interesting.
So I can turn to my colleague, Catherine Lappy, to answer that question with more precision, because we're still in negotiation.
Madame Lappy, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, merci. I think we're going to have to come back to you on an answer on that. I don't actually think that the third party has necessarily been selected at this point in time. As my colleague had indicated, we're in the midst of negotiations still, but the intent is that it would be held by a third party to do the administration. It is a complex area here, because we're talking about a First Nations Child and Family Services program, as well as Jordan's Principle, for both compensation, where the $20 billion, one set of $20 billion is talked about, but there's also $20 billion that's being set aside for the long-term reform of the First Nations Child and Family Services program. And then there's also discussions underway for the long-term reform of Jordan's Principle.
Okay, well, I'd be very much interested in who the third party is. If the money, if there's billions of dollars going over to a third party, that raises a whole lot of other questions. So I'd be very interested in getting.
So on that question, Mr. Thompson, we will have a written answer with the deadline that we are sharing with you, which is through the clerk, by the end of the day on Monday, June 13. Is that agreed upon?
So, Mr. Chair, I think I can answer the question. The department is not going to be in a position to provide additional information on the third-party administrator until we have completed the negotiation. So, as the department evolves with the negotiation, we should be in a position to provide the information to the committee.
So it's still presently it's ongoing. It is still in discussion,
It's still in negotiation. This is correct.
negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sénateur Forêt to be followed par le sénateur Gignac. Sénateur